In this video, we're going to be implementing the create product method. Or the add product in this case route endpoint using the service and using the JPA repository. So I'm going to come right over here in our services, and what we want to do is we want to have this adding of a product to be actually happening in the DB. So we want to use the JPA repository to actually add a product to the DB, and then we want to return that product that was added. So I'm going to go to the product service and I'm going to create a new method. That's going to be a public method. It's going to return again an optional of, actually in this case, it's going to return a product because we're going to save it. So we're going to return a product, and I'm just going to say add product. I'm going to name it. So this here would probably receive a product that we are going to receive in the request body. So that's how I'm going to put it over there. And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to say we're first going to have to map it to an entity. So I'm going to have to create a product entity to equal new product entity. And then I'm going to say product entity.set name. And we're going to set the name from the product that we receive here in the method. And then also I'm going to do the same thing for the description. So I'm going to say get description. Notice that I'm not setting the ID, and that's because the ID is going to get automatically generated for us. So that's why we don't need to explicitly specify the ID right here. So after we've done this, we have to call our repository, and we have to call the save method that's included into our JPA repository. So I'm going to say product JPA repository.save, and I'm just going to say save the product entity that I've just created. And just like that, this is going to save this new product to the DB. Now, this also would return the product, the currently saved product. So I can say return and that product. But as you can see, this will return a product entity. So we would have to remap it if we want to return it back. Now, what I'm going to do is, because we probably don't want to remap it right now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to return the product that we're saving. So I'm just going to return the one from the request, but I just deleted the line of the saving, so we don't want to do that. Because for the purposes of this tutorial, we're not going to really, if we were to have a different return object, then we would obviously had to remap it. But in this case, I'm just going to return the product like that. So we're saving it to the DB and we are returning the saved product. Now let's head back to our controller and let's change the implementation a little bit. So we're no longer going to be using this static list. But what are we going to be using? We're going to be using the product service dot add product, and we are gonna pass the product onto that method. And now I'm gonna go ahead and introduce a local variable here that's gonna be saved. I'm gonna name it saved product, and I'm gonna return that product right over there. And just like that, we're no longer using this static list, and we're actually adding a product in the service. We're actually saving it to the DB, and then we're returning the saved product. In this case, we're returning the one that's in the request, but that's going to have the updated values, so that's really going to be the product. But not really, we're not returning the ID as I noticed here. So what we can do is we can actually change this a little bit. Let's just say that I want to create another product response, because we're not setting the ID to be equal new product. And then what I'm going to do, this is going to return a product entity, saved product, saved. So this is going to return our saved product, just like that. And now this product response is what we're going to want to return, because we actually want to also have the ID populated, so the DB ID. So I'm just going to go ahead and say product entity.set ID, saved product.get ID, and I'm going to do all those things for all of the other fields. So for the name, get the name, for the description, get the description. And just like that, but I didn't set it right, so I needed to set it to the product response actually. And just like that, we can return the product response. So now even the ID is gonna get populated. So now if we restart the application, and if we go to Postman, we can check the add product route, so we can actually see if it works. So let's go to Postman right now. We already have the mapping here. So now what are we not gonna need? So we're not gonna need the ID anymore. So that can be taken out from the request, because that's gonna get automatically generated by the DB. And I'm just gonna click send. And as you can see, we got 201 created. We are having an ID too, because previously we only had one product in the DB, but now this called the service and the JPA repository and saved a new product in the DB. So now if I go to the dbeaver here, and if I refresh, so if I click here refresh, you can see we are having the newly added product right over there in the DB. And now if I also go ahead and do fetch all the products, so if I go ahead and fetch all the products, you can see that now we actually do have 2 products in the DB right over there. And as you can see, they're both right over there, and these are getting fetched from the DB. So that's how to implement the adding of a product. So what we've done is we're no longer using the static list. We're calling the service to add the product. The product entity gets constructed right over here with the name and the description. Then we are saving the product, and then what are we doing is we're generating a response right here. We're putting the ID in the response, the name and description, and we're returning that product back so we can return it back on the endpoint. So that's going to be it for this video. In the next one, we're going to cover the other methods. So we're no longer using this static list. So after we implement the delete and the update product, we're no longer going to need this static list, because all of those methods are going to be using our actual database for deleting and updating. But that's going to be it for this video.